Hey friends, I wanted to tell you about something exciting that we're doing this year. We're hosting the inaugural Kolsch Cup, and we want you to take part. Every competitor will receive a Kolsch Cup t-shirt, and we will be awarding one Grand Champion trophy to the King or Queen of Kolsch, as well as 2 runner-up medals. All entries will receive our official scorecards, so you'll know how we judged your Kolsch, and you can learn more by going to kolschcup.com and signing up today. Bonus, top-tier members of our Patreon community get 1 free entry into the competition, and you can learn more at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. Or again, go to kolschcup.com for more details and to sign up for Kolsch Cup 2021 today.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Dealing with frozen beer, bottling nitro stouts with a beer gun, dislodged airlocks, and placing propane burners on wood platforms. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 217. Oh, hello there, and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions, and we discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the Submit a Question link at the top of the page, or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today, I am joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com down there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President, and it says it in his title now on the Zoom because he doesn't know how to change his name, and I had to do it for him, the Chief Keg Washer of kegconnection.com, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
Good. I'm writing a quick email so we can order a product that we're going to talk about on the show today. So.
That is rapid results from Mr. Todd Burns. You can always expect that. Todd, what I love the most, we will write an article on Homebrew Happy Hour, which, by the way, Todd, you've been churning out content for Homebrew Happy Hour lately.
I have done some content.
Article after article after article. It's impressive. But we'll have content on the show, and you're like, wait a second, we talked about this, and we don't sell it. Why don't we sell it? And then within a day, we're selling it. You're like, well, we talked about it on the show.
We're about to do it again.
You're about to do it again. That's right. Brilliant. We have I just got your email. How funny is that? You weren't kidding. I just got your email back.
I didn't mean to send it to you. Did I send it to you?
Yeah. Well, I think it went into that. I would think it went into that master inbox that I get as well. I'm able to spy on you. Anyway.
Okay, I got you.
As we said at the top of the show, it is coming closer and closer to Kolsch Cup. I'm excited. We're at 55 entries right now. I'm not good at math, but if we do, there's going to be 4 of us judging, at least 4. We might have 5 people judging because we're not sure if Joe can be there. But you think Wes will be there, right?
We're going to try.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah.
And
he's so busy, I wouldn't count on him.
That's what, right. And I'm sure Joe will. He seemed excited last time I was up there when we talked about it to him. But either way, we're going to have, the plan is to have 4 judges in 3-ounce increments from a 12-ounce bottle. 55, we might have to split it up in 2 days of judging. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Because a lot of these Kolsches, if they're to style, they're going to be around 5%. That's pretty sessionable. It's not going to get too sloshed. What do you think, Todd? You were concerned.
Yeah, we should get Rick to come down from Logic. He's an official judge, you know.
He actually is. You'd have to fly him from Pennsylvania, right? Isn't that where he's at? I think he's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. That'd be fun.
It would, and it would give us
fun to see.
It would give us some street cred too, because I've had only a handful of people email like, "Well, what gives you the right to judge?" And so my replies to them are like, "Well, what gives you the right to judge?" Like, I'm a child. I don't.
What gives you the right?
Yeah. What? Oh yeah, that episode of The Office. What gives you the right? Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. I will kill you. Anyway, we have to make office references. I haven't watched it since it moved over to Peacock because I'm too cheap to subscribe to Peacock. Do you subscribe to Peacock, James?
Yeah, I got it. It's pretty good.
Is it worth it?
I think so. It's got a lot of good content on it.
I thought
the news. I don't watch the news. So.
Yeah. What were you saying, Todd?
Oh, I thought y'all had already seen all the episodes.
thousands of times.
Todd is one of those guys. Yeah, Todd is one of those. You watches a show or a movie once. I can't think of a movie or a show, Todd, you've watched multiple times in your life. You don't got time for that.
Pink Floyd, The Wall at Midnighters when I was in.
Pink Floyd, The Wall is a classic. You can't even rent that anymore. I don't know. You can buy it on Amazon, but I tried to rent it.
And he means when it was out in production, like not now. Yeah, right, Todd? Like you're talking about
Midnighters were. I don't know if they still do Midnighters, but
they used to. I know they did when I was in high school.
They basically had 3 movies, and we saw them at midnight on the weekends every weekend.
Right.
So
but when you were a teenager,
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
It was a drive-in, wasn't it?
No, it was just a regular.
We had a drive-in.
When you were a teenager, though, Todd, it's easy to keep watching it over and over because you were probably stoned out of your mind that you didn't remember the last time you watched it. And so it was like a whole new process. I mean, I was a teenager once.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That would be because of the drugs. That's why you don't know. Anyway.
Well, if you remember, Todd, back in the day when Star Wars come out, the whole thing was how many times have you seen it?
Was it?
I think I went to the theater probably 5 times to see Star Wars, but there was people in my school that saw it 20 times.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't have VCRs back then. So if you wanted to see a movie, you just kept going to see it.
All right.
I saw it once.
And the only movie I know, when Gladiator came out, I was going into freshman year of high school, and I think I saw that movie 5 times that summer. That's the only.
That's a good movie.
It was. My dad gave me a $20 a week allowance I had to make last for like food because I was doing summer school to get ahead, not because I was behind. I was a dork, and so he gave me $20 a week. And one week I didn't eat lunch because I was going to go to the movies after school every day to go see Gladiator. And the tickets back then for a student were like $4 maybe or $3. It was cheap for matinee. Now I haven't been to the movies in forever, but we went to Alamo Draft House like 6 months ago for some movie, my wife and I think the tickets were $20 a piece, and then the food is another $30 a piece, and the beers are another $10.
Beer, yes.
Yeah, the beer.
Oh,
you get the big Stein glass. It's like $30.
No.
See, I like the way that we went completely off topic, but we brought it back to beer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It was good.
Well, their trick too is getting,
and you get to keep the glass too. It's a nice looking Oktoberfest dimpled glass
at Draft House.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know they did that.
Yeah.
Dang.
It's a big one. It's probably that big, and it has their logo on it. But
for how much?
It looks exactly like it's $30 full, but it looks exactly what you'd see in Munich during Oktoberfest.
Interesting. Is it like the dimpled ones? Like the dimpled ones I brought y'all back from Real Ale that one year?
Yeah, but a lot taller.
Right.
Around.
Yeah, because those ones I think are maybe 12 ounces as opposed to.
We got to figure out how to get to Oktoberfest one year.
Yeah, well, I've been bringing y'all. I've consistently been bringing y'all glassware back. Oh, yeah, real Oktoberfest. Yeah, not real ales. Yeah. Oh, I agree.
That would be our mecca.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to a good point. Sign up for our Patreon so we can go. We should make that.
Squeeze Todd's arm.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
No, I like the idea. We could ask our members to send us to Oktoberfest, please.
No, we could do a podcast for them.
We would do a podcast
over there.
That's what it would be. Yeah. Think of the great content we would produce. And people already are suspect. Again, Kolsch Cup has been the most that people are suspect of me when they're like, what are the odds that you're not actually going to judge this, that you're just drinking it all? And I was like, no, I'd never do that to you. Now, the legitimacy of my judging credentials, yeah, I question that all day. It's like talking about The Office when Andy's talking about being an art critic. This Kolsch is good. This Kolsch is not. Like that.
This movie is good.
Yes.
This movie is
not. This movie is not. I might end up like that, but we'll see. But yes, you to shorten up the rest of the small talk, go to kolschcup.com. Look at all the details. We'd love to have you enter. Everyone does get a t-shirt when you enter. That is what your $20 is basically going towards.
Don't enter. It's $2.55.
Todd's trying
Stop entering.
We don't have a cap yet, but if after this episode it just blows up, maybe we'll set a soft cap at something. I don't know. I don't want to cap it. I like this prospect of drinking Kolsch all week if we had to. Like if we have to make the contest go extra day or two, I'll stay up there, Todd, at the barn. I'll take one for the team. I realize
that, but I have to pay you.
Oh.
You're not going to get anything done if you're drinking Kolsch all day long for 4 or 5 days.
Is that different?
Well, he would get drinking Kolsch done.
Yeah, thank you, James. See? James sees the value of what I do. So yes, Kolsch Cup's on there. Oh, big exciting announcement. This next week, so not we published them on Tuesdays before COVID, and then I used COVID as a very convenient excuse. We're bringing Recipe Recap back officially. We're recording 2 episodes when I'm up there this week. Today's Wednesday. We're recording it a day early so that I can make sure it gets published on time and not get yelled at by another co-host of mine on the show. We are doing Recipe Recap when I come up there. We're doing the Dunkelweizen from homebrewsupply.com, and then we're doing the Celebration clone from Sierra Nevada that Todd brewed. Todd, did you brew? Wait, James, you brewed the Dunkel, and Todd brewed the Celebration, right?
Celebration, yeah.
Okay.
So I have to tell everybody that I asked Josh for months about Recipe Recap, and he kept saying, we got plenty of episodes. We got plenty of episodes. But I started to get suspicious after about 6 months because we hadn't recorded one.
And that will do it for this. I can't.
So you're going to commit to doing it
weekly
every
again.
week.
Yeah, we're back.
Weekly
Yeah,
again.
Because
Okay.
here's the plan. Well, we bought gear during COVID last year for a mobile setup that I wouldn't have to bring this huge rig with me every time. And we're going to streamline the production of Recipe Recap. What happened was there was too many, we had 3 independent cameras and then an independent sound recording. And the sound on one of the episodes wasn't recorded. And so we just had the audio from one of those GoPros. And then on the other one, the GoPros died in the middle of it. So right now, it's like how we do the show here where everything's brought into one machine. So if something fails, we'll know immediately at time of recording. But it's going to be real streamlined. It's going to be good. So yes, the Recipe Recap is coming back starting next Tuesday. And the first, it'll be episode number 6, and it'll be the Dunkelweizen, which is the beer during dry January Todd wouldn't keg and carbonate and let me enjoy. But James has already drank. I think you already drank your whole keg of it, didn't you?
No, I still have some.
Okay. You've told me it's incredible. So I'm really looking for
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think we had a little problem with getting to final gravity with it. So I think it's a little sweet for my taste.
I had one last night. It was good. Yeah, and I like, me, I like dry beers. It was good.
Yeah. Do you have?
I would have liked to see it fall down to a little bit lower than what
Todd,
it was.
do you have? What's that? What's that German beer? That's my favorite Dunkel. Warsteiner. Do you have any in your fridge?
You can get that here in Comanche.
Boom. We'll get that before.
Yeah,
so
I believe so. I'll go by and check.
We'll be able to have a commercial example, ideally, fingers crossed, and which is an incredible commercial example too. So no pressure on you, James, but
if not, then you may have to look on your way out here.
I will.
You may need to stop by Specs or
Total
Wine and More.
You tell me, if you can tell me this afternoon.
Probably Total Wine and More would be the one I would check.
There's one on my way out of Austin too, so that won't be an issue. So yes, Recipe Recap returns next Tuesday. If it doesn't publish, send your hate mail to tburns@keconnection.com and let him know how you feel about the broken promises I made. I promise you, he's no stranger to them. So then the last thing I have about end of small talk is, Todd, you're officially out of dry January. Look at you. You look like off of the set of Castaway. Did you not shave? Was it no shave January? Because that's like
shave, no haircut, nothing. My uncle and I are trying to see who can grow their hair out longer. You got to see my Uncle Paul, who's always very clean cut. His hair is getting really long now. So. Because of COVID, nobody wants to get their hair cut, right?
Right, totally. And you look like it. It's funny, the videos that we published during COVID last year, you look the same way. Like when 5 months into lockdown, we did that Extract Brewing video on homebrewhappyhour.com, and people, my favorite feedback on it is like, does Todd normally have his hair that long? Todd looks like a hippie. Why is his hair so long? And it's like, everything's locked down at the time, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, which again, wrapping up small talk, homebrewhappyhour.com has a ton of new content coming out all the time now. Todd has been on fire of writing stuff. He just published Keyser build article.
The Keyser build. So we had sorry, I'm cutting you off.
No,
we had the Keyser build as the last year, the Homebrew Con. It was our presentation. It was like an hour long. And what I realized was, 2 things. We talked about a lot of other stuff before we got into the meat of it. And the meat of it's still fairly long. I think it's still 25 minutes, but it really goes into detail on how to build a Keyser. And more importantly, there's a step-by-step, which I wrote and Josh put the photos in, so that you got every single step that you can not have to pause and start the video, and there's a written description and a photograph of each step, so you can actually take that article and use that in conjunction with the video. And I think it'll make it building a keezer extremely easy for people. So I'm really excited about this article.
I am too.
Yeah, it's a good video. I watched it yesterday.
Yeah, and James, you probably saw first up when we do videos like that, how quick of the traction they get and comments. I mean, like normally our episodes get a handful of comments, and it's from our regulars, and we appreciate them. Anytime we put any kind of content that'll be found from someone who maybe not subscribed to our show already, and they're just finding us from a search, those kind of videos get a gazillion comments. The first ones are obviously bots because they're like, "Hey baby, you're so hot. Here's my link," and I fall for it every time.
You mean that's not real?
Yeah. Well, I gave my social security number yesterday to the hottest chick. I mean, she says she's gonna call, but anyway, I'm glad.
Well, there was already a question on that, and I answered it. I don't know if you noticed it.
Yes, I did. I hearted it. Yeah, and I had answered it as well, and then I saw you answered it. I was like, oh. Well, James is quicker to the draw, but yeah, and I appreciate that I forget how active you are on YouTube. But anyway, I think we are good to go into the show. What I want to start off on the top of the show, guys, is I get feedback from previous episodes all the time of people who listen and they go, "Hey, that guy who asked this, here's what I would do." Da 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 da. And I want to encourage more people to do what Nick did in sending it to our hotline at 325-305-6107. It's a voicemail hotline, and he had some feedback on the question about making extract beers drier. So I'm going to play that up right now, and we'll go over that real quick. So let me see how to do this. And here we go. Maybe.
Hey, Josh and crew. My name is Nick from Collegeville, Pennsylvania. I was listening to the last show, loved it, thought some great topics, and I just had some feedback on making those extract beers a bit drier. I make a lot of extract beers. I find it more convenient. I have young kids, saves time. And one thing you can do to actually increase the fermentability of your liquid or dry malt extract is to actually steep a little bit of base malt in there. It just takes a couple of ounces, and if you use some high-quality American two-row or German Pilsner, the enzymes in there will continue to break down some of the starches and sugars that are in the LME or DME and make it a bit fermentable. In addition, you can also buy alpha amylase, which is the alpha amylase enzyme. A lot of people were using that 2 years ago to make brute IPAs. If you put that in there with your extract at about 150 degrees during a little steep, it'll also break down those starches and sugars, dry it out. And then when you boil it, it deactivates the enzyme and it'll dry your beer a little bit. So those are some tips for you if you want to dry out some of your extract beers. Again, love the show. Love the Kolsch Cup. You guys are doing a great job. Take care.
See, I like feedback like that.
That's great. That's a
great idea.
Yeah. And that's what Todd was scrambling. He was like, you know what? We're going to start stocking that now. So soon.
Yeah, and when we were talking about that, that was the last thing on my mind is adding an enzyme to break down those longer sugar chains.
Right. And
that's a great answer.
And Nick, he brings up good points in regards to a lot of people we know extract brew for the convenience of it and the time and the life situation. And, we've gone over this a million times, even on Recipe Recap. Extract beer produces some solid beer still. So, we definitely encourage brewing as often as you can and however you can. The extract brewing is fantastic. But Nick, I had already reached back out to him, and if you do send us feedback like that and we play it, we're going to treat it like a question. So I sent Nick a gift card as well to ketconnection.com. So encouraging that kind, because I think if we had a segment every show of listener feedback about questions or their input on stuff or follow-ups if we took their question, I think that'd be a good addition to the show. It would add some extra perspective, and also we're going to be doing more homebrewer showcase episodes in the future. So anyways, all of that out of the way, we've got 4 questions for you guys this week, starting with the first question from our buddy Sam, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Sam wrote, "Hi Josh, I use an EdgeStar kegerator that I bought from Keg Connection last year, and it has been great, except that I recently found it freezing over. The back was caked in ice, and unfortunately, my beer seems to have also frozen up. I was able to squeeze the keg into a different fridge while I defrost my EdgeStar. Since this is the first time that this has ever happened to me, what, if anything, can I expect to have happen to my beer that froze? Are there any common off flavors that happen from beer being too cold? Also, do you have any recommendations for kegerator maintenance or suggestions to help keep me from freezing it up in the future? I'm so new to kegerators that any advice would really help me. Sam.
This is a great question because that happened to me this week.
Did it really?
Did it really?
Well, it happened during during my alcohol-free month, and that's another thing, Josh. You were probably drinking extremely high alcohol beer when you were here, because I suspect that those kegs were partially frozen, and you were drinking the nectar of the beer.
Oh yeah.
So you're probably getting like 10% alcohol beer when you were here. No wonder you were so goofy.
Yeah, more goofy. But
anyway,
the song sounded good.
I've never had a kegerator, any type of kegerator, that didn't eventually have this happen. You just, unfortunately, you just got to defrost them. The only exception would maybe be like a commercial True or something like that has a really good defrost feature in it. But eventually, particularly like with the Keezers, when you're using the temperature controller, eventually you're either gonna, if you keep your beer cold enough, you're probably gonna have this happen where it freezes one of the kegs because it's too close to where the cold is, or partially freeze a keg. It's not terribly uncommon. I've never had a big problem with it. I've thawed them out and thought that I'd ruined the beer, and they were fine once they thawed out. I don't know, James, have you had any experience with that?
Yeah, there's a couple of issues that come to mind on something like that. Is sometimes if you check your door gasket and make sure it's sealed all the way around, and also on the underneath, I think those do they vent from the front?
The Edge Star is more like a traditional. It's going to vent in the back. Yeah, it's okay. It's not one of the ones that vents in the.
What you might do, and this gets overlooked a lot, is to pull that thing out and make sure that the condenser, which is the little radiator-looking thing on the back with the fins, make sure it's nice and clean. You can take some air, even if it's just canned air, and you can blow it out. And anytime you can clean that condenser, you're going to have that heat transfer better or more efficient. And sometimes when that gets off balance, it can do that as well. But that would be a couple of things that I would check.
Oh, and also I know you're talking about a kegerator, which is different, but on a Keezer, if you accidentally leave your temperature probe outside of the Keezer itself, that will definitely freeze your beer up. Yeah. I have done that before.
Oh, you mean? Oh, you have?
Yes, and also
hypothetically,
if you I always have mine set kind of in the middle, so it kind of gets an average. But I've had it fall to the bottom or go off to one side where it's right up against it, and it can have an effect either way. The kegerator could get too warm, or you could freeze. I guarantee you, if you leave the temperature probe outside of the Keezer, it will freeze all of your kegs solid.
Yes.
That's hilarious. Todd, for cleaning, we all know, I painfully know, because my inbox is always full of people with inside jokes about your cleaning schedule for the lines being every 2 weeks. Do you have
3 days ago?
Yeah.
If that's what your question was.
Do you have a routine for defrosting, or is it just reactionary as opposed to a precautionary? Like, you don't preemptively defrost it, you wait to see any kind of buildup and then you defrost it, or should you?
Yeah,
would you say
on the Keezer in particular, you will almost always start to get some ice on the bottom because you lose some liquid, or you got some condensation that falls down when it's not frozen, and you'll get some ice on the bottom. Like the one we have at work, which is a great kegerator, the back plate will freeze up. You see that a lot in the smaller Keezers. There's a plate in the back, and that's where the cold comes from. And that thing, you'll pull the kegs out, and they'll be completely covered in ice. And when it's completely covered in ice, it's time to pull
unplug
your kegs out. Yeah, unplug it and open the door and let it thaw out. So
yeah, absolutely.
I was just doodling it because I thought it was ice box. There's a style where you're purposely freezing it, but I don't know if you've ever purposely done an ice box. I had to Google search it real quick.
Well, I did one actually. If y'all remember, I froze a bock beer, one of the first bock beers I ever made, and I let it thaw out, and it was fine.
Well, that's
freezing it.
Yeah, Budweiser made an ice beer. I think they still do.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. They're freezing. They get when they start to get ice. My understanding is that they're pulling the ice out because it's the water, and then it increases the alcohol content of the beer.
Yep. And a lot of people, there's several videos on YouTube about ice distilling. And,
Okay.
And that's the way they're doing it, because of course the water will freeze before the alcohol does.
You want to, if you know, a lot of times the beer will still flow fine, but it's got ice in it, and that's what I was joking about with Josh. Is that if all of a sudden you're getting really kersnonkered off your beer, it may be because you have taken a lot of the water out of it.
And I thought it was just
alcohol content.
Well, you remember, I was enjoying that celebration a lot when I was over there, and maybe in that already a pretty high ABV beer in celebration. Like,
oh yeah, very high.
Anyways, wrapping up Sam's question, if it freezes, there's no like James said, I can't think of any known off flavors that are going to occur from you just let the beer thaw out.
Mm-hmm. That's what I did on mine, and it came out really good.
Yeah, I was just saying, I've never heard of any issues, but I guess if you leave it outside of the keg for too long and it warms up too long, you might run into some problems, right? That's the only kind of thing I can think of. But you should be good, Sam, to go. Just let it thaw out. And unfortunately, like Todd said, with kegerators and teasers, defrosting is just a part of maintenance. So as you see it starting, you can use that as your indicator to defrost it and go from there. But anyways, thank you for submitting the question. A good reminder that if and when we take your question on a future episode, we do give you a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com, courtesy of Mr. Todd Burns. Thank you, sir, for your generosity. Moving on to question number 2 came from our buddy Steven, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. And Steven wrote, I love the podcast and I love the Patreon page. Keep up the great work, guys. You have talked about nitro stuff lately, which got me thinking about bottling from a keg of nitro stout. I bought a beer gun from you, making it possible for me to counter pressure fill bottles from my teaser. I also have one tap completely dedicated to nitro stouts. Can I use the beer gun off that keg to fill bottles? My gut says no, because the beer gun doesn't have the parts built into it to serve nitro beer, but I honestly don't know. Assuming that I can use the beer gun, do you think the beer will maintain the nitrogen in it for very long? I know about the insert things breweries use for distributing their nitro beers, and maybe those are available to homebrewers? If I can't bottle from the beer gun, how do you suggest I share my nitro stouts with friends? Joshua rules, Kolsch rules, blah, blah, blah. Thanks for taking my question. Steven's smart. He listens to the show and he knows how to get his question on the air. I think he answered it, but I'm going to let you guys as the pros. I don't think you can bottle nitro. You wouldn't want to bottle nitro from a beer gun, right, James?
Well, I don't know, because I've never done it.
You know that milk can.
Todd be more on that.
Milk Hand Stout has a nitro beer. Left hand brewery has a milk stout. Well, that was a difficult thing.
No, a milk hand.
It's
milk hand. It's like Gnome milk hand. Yeah.
So they have a beer and it doesn't have a widget in it. So I guess they do it. I would say we have no earthly idea. You should try it and let us know if it works or not.
Make a video. We'll put it on Homebrew Happy Hour, because I don't want to make the video because I'm terrified. No, I mean, what's the worst case that could happen? That because it's not diffusing, and that's where I agree with him when he says my gut says no. Because part of James, what would happen if you served up a nitro beer out of a V3N with the diffuser off of it? It wouldn't remove the nitrogen from the beverage. So
no, it would just draft like a normal faucet.
Right.
So this would be a good question for somebody to call in and answer what they're doing, because I'm sure it's probably possible if you have the right gas and stuff to use a beer gun. But every time I've ever had a nitro beer, one thing I've always noticed about the can is it's got a lot more pressure than a regular beer.
Well, I know left stout, as I like to call it. You open the beer and you turn it completely upside down and let it fall into the glass. And it says it on the label, because I was at a friend of ours, Rob's house, a while back, and he had one in his fridge, and I got a glass and I opened the beer and I turned it completely upside down, and it was in the middle of his living room, and he ran over going, "No, what are you doing?" Because he was expecting the beer to go everywhere. And it did just like if you'd poured it from a nitro. I don't know how they do it, but I would try it. I mean, that's a great question. It really is. I now I want to try it. That's a great idea.
You know what? And I was about to say we could try while I'm up there, but we can't because we don't have nitro. We don't have
we got to do that. We
had to.
Yeah, we've got nitrogen, but I don't know, Todd, is it beer gas or is it straight?
We need beer gas. We don't have any beer gas right now. We're out of beer gas.
You need to send
get some.
me home with the cylinder.
I know. I have 3 cylinders with nitrogen in them, and I don't want to just open them up and waste them, but I guess that's what we have to do.
At least one of them. Of them.
Yeah.
I would be interested, Steve, for you to call in or videotape it and send it. Or again, like James said, anyone who's already done it. Because my next suggestion was going to be a growler pouring off of a nitrogen faucet like the V3N stout faucet. And as long as it's sealed up, the integrity of the beer should be good for a little bit if you're trying to share it that way. But I get the novelty of canning or bottling and wanting to share it that way. I would be interested.
My final suggestion is to do 3 of them and send them to Homebrew Happy Hour
for Stout Cup,
EDC Parkway.
We'll do Stout Cup next November. We're going to do the alt beer extravaganza sometime soon, and then we'll do Stout Cup. And I have to just think of various ones we can do because Kolsch Cup is drawing way better than I ever thought it would. And I'm talking way too early because watch, it's going to be a total cluster when it comes time for me to actually give y'all all the papers to judge and all that. But anyway, I would, if you're listening to this show and you know how you would share specifically bottling or canning your nitro from a nitro tap, from a nitro keg, let us know because we are interested in finding out and we don't have the means of trying it in the immediate future. So let us know. And Steven, if you do try it, we would love to hear from you because worst case, you're going to spray some beer everywhere or it might be over foamy or I just don't know what it's going to do. That's what's the most intriguing part of it is I have no idea what it's going to do. But anyways, thank you so much, Steven, for submitting your question. I can't talk today. Moving on to question number 3 came from our buddy Preston, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Preston wrote, "Great show, guys. I will be joining your annual monthly recipes Patreon soon once I get some more STEMI money." You got to get that STEMI money. I do have a question for you. I currently have an IPA fermenting in a bucket in my brewing area. I brewed yesterday, and now today I noticed there wasn't any activity going on, but I saw that the airlock had gotten dislodged, so I repositioned it, pushed it in tightly, and now I'm worried I might have shot some unwanted oxygen down into the bucket from doing it. I've never had this happen, so it's a little unnerving to me. This would be the first batch or the first bad batch since I began brewing a couple of years ago. I guess it had to happen at some point, or maybe I'm overreacting. Help, Preston. And he literally just wrote this to me on Monday, so it should be still soon enough to help him out. I did reach out to him by email, but Preston, Todd, you know what? Sometimes I've hit you up or James really and like, oh, there's no activity. What am I going to do? And y'all are like, well, is there krausen? And then I'll check and, oh God, there's krausen. And it was because there was some sort of way the air was leaking out from the bucket side or just enough or whatever.
Yeah. It's a little piece of plastic. What it usually is for me is a little piece of plastic from the bucket lid is made like a string and it's bridging across the O-ring. That's almost always what it is when I've had that problem.
But with the airlock, and he knows specifically that it was dislodged and he fixed it. One, he should probably start seeing activity in it now since it's so early in fermentation. But is he overreacting, James, about worrying about oxidizing?
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to do some serious splashing to do that. You got to understand there's CO2 just laying on top of that beer.
Yeah.
So it's not, they'll tell him, no, you don't have to worry about a thing on there.
Yeah, he's fine.
Have y'all had that, since, or Todd, you have the most experience between various fermentation vessels. Because you still frequently use buckets. Do you run into any issues with conicals like you do with buckets or are buckets the ones that ever give you these kinds of problems? Because I can't imagine you're going to have air leaking.
Oh, I mean, I've had a lot of things blow it off because there's just so much pressure coming off. I should have used a blow off tube and I used a bubbler and it was just too much pressure. It just blew the thing off of there, or it's just shooting out of it and or it's stuck and it's building up pressure, that sort of thing. I mean, I've had problems with everything I've ever used at some point. Yes.
I'm going to edit that to just be you saying, I have problems. And that'll be the audio clip we use for this episode. I'm just trying to think, because like, especially it being so early in the fermentation, like you said, like Todd, remember we had a question from email and I didn't throw it in the show. And we were probably going to do it on a future episode. I was able to get a hold of Casey Hellwig from Imperial and ask them to maybe help us answer it. But James, the gist of this one question was, I pitched a bunch and I've heard of aerating my wort into the first 36 hours of fermentation. And what would that do? Would that be okay? And apparently the consensus is like, yeah, you could do that. And it might help you get the most out of your yeast or whatever. So with that, not that full question answer.
Just to clarify, they're talking about injecting oxygen through a tube or something into it while you're waiting. I've never heard of somebody doing that, but obviously
commercial breweries
like
do
it.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I saw that question, and again, we're gonna try to get Casey's input on it, and but that made me think when I saw Preston's, like, God, if he's on day 1 or by now like day 2 of fermentation, like you said, James, you got to do a lot of sloshing and to kill that blanket of CO2 that's already been established. I bet you what little air he pushed through from that airlock would just bounce back from the.
Yeah, it did make a dent. Never seen the wort or the beer.
Which again, though, I do like, because I'm the same way. And James's inbox for text messaging will tell you on brew day, it's a whole. You could be a very rational person and turn super irrational. And I'm talking about myself when it comes to like, James, oh my God, we pitched 5 hours ago and I don't see activity. What's going on? Or, oh, James, a fly landed in the wort after boil. What is going to happen? And most of the time you're the one who tells me like, just chill out. You say it nicer, but you're like, just chill out.
Well, I mean, you got a lot of money. Most of these people that homebrew, they do it because they love it, not because they're trying to save money. So I understand getting a little paranoid about what you're doing because you don't want it to fail.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
but
the story I love the most is F.H. Steinbart in Portland is like one of the oldest homebrew stores, I think, in the country. And I went in there one time years ago, and they just had a crock, a ceramic crock of I think it was about 5 gallons. And they had a piece of cheesecloth over the top of it, and they were fermenting in it. And I was like, wow, I can't believe, don't you have problems with oxygenation? Don't you have problems with contamination, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, oh, we've been doing it like this for, 30 years. I've never, it's fine. Yeah. So, we may get over concerned about things like that sometimes. But, the reason we get over concerned is that it's fine until it's not, until you get it contaminated or you have some major issue. But, yeah, I think an airlock coming off, you got to remember always it's positive pressure coming out until the very, very end. So you're not dealing with with something that's going to suck air in. It's always going to be tending to push air out. So
absolutely, yeah. So Preston, relax, don't worry, have a homebrew.
You're good.
I was able to sneak that in here. Thank you, Charlie, for the phrase. Anyways, moving on to our final question of this week's show, came from our buddy Ryan, who also used a submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Ryan wrote, "Hi Joshua, James, and Todd. The podcast has given me the courage to move on up from partial mash brewing to the Keg Connection cooler brew that you guys promote all the time. Excellent choice, Ryan. I'm also going to build a tiered brew station in my backyard out of wood pallets and leftover materials I have in my shop. This might be a dumb question, but here it goes. I know that the kettle needs to be at the base level of my brew station, but can it and the propane burner that I'm going to be using be placed on a wood pallet as well, or is that too close to playing with fire, pun intended? Ground level in my backyard isn't ideal, and I'd like to add some elevation under the kettle if possible. If you guys think it's a bad idea, what would you build your tiered brew station base level out of? Keep up the good work. Cheers from Florida." When my dad and I we don't have a brew station with our cooler brew. We have like this stool that we put on top of a table for the top tier, and then the table is the second tier, and then the ground is the third tier. And so the burner is the bottom tier. If you're trying to add elevation, I think wood pallets is a very common DIY material that brewers are using. But is his concerns right, James, about using a fire burner on top of a wooden pallet?
I wouldn't take. It'd probably be fine, but I just wouldn't take the chance. It's wood.
Best
And
case
pallet
scenario
wood tends to be pretty old.
Best case scenario,
So-
nothing happens. Worst case scenario, big fire, right?
Yeah. Yep. I'll tell you what I did. I found a guy that had some old mail shelves for Big Bertha, and I just cut them down and made a 3-tiered metal system, and it didn't cost me anything, but the guy wanted them out of the way. Another option too is wire shelving at Home Depot is really cheap. So you could get a couple of wire shelving for your tiered, and then your turkey burner for the boil pot. That would work too, and it would cost a lot. Look good too.
Well, Todd, you've brewed on Cooler Brew, but I don't. When you had like when we did that filming for the brew day, like we were all over your barn. So, like when you were doing propane, you're very safety first thinking. You're very adamant that regardless of what the platform was, we did the propane outside. Like we weren't doing it on the inside behind you. Everything that required.
That big of a propane burner, you don't want to do inside.
Right.
It's well, you don't want to, and if you do, you definitely don't want to have the tank inside.
Right, and not just location, but do you agree with James and you like on the base unit, like if you need elevation, do metal or or something that's not gonna catch fire potentially and really ruin your brew day.
I don't want to answer the question because then I would have to admit that my burner is screwed down to a wooden base.
Is it really?
But it's sitting on concrete, so
I'm refusing to answer this question.
You are recusing yourself from the panel. I didn't know that.
Yeah, which is a bad idea, I'm sure, but it is screwed down to
I'm gonna
wood.
take a picture when I'm up there tomorrow and post it to our Instagram, just because that's hilarious. I had no idea that it was bolted down.
I got to go look at it. It may even be a pallet. I don't know.
Wait a second. Yeah, Ryan is Todd's
It depends
alter.
on where you live too. I mean,
yeah.
Well, I was imagining he's in Florida. I have very limited experience. He's probably brewing in a swamp. Isn't that all Florida is? And the alligators are around him, and he needs some elevation. And so
It's very humid.
it's very humid. So he's like James said. Look, I don't know what kind of legal liability we have, so I'm going to say don't use a wooden pallet, because if we even suggest that you should, then when it burns down and you burn your swamp home down, because again, isn't that all Florida is? I'm kidding. We have a lot of listeners in Florida. I love the state. Disney World is my life, ask Todd. But in Florida's more than Disney. But anyway, I'm digressing. Don't brew on the wooden pallet if you want to cover your bases and not potentially have a big fire hazard. Now,
And you've got heat coming around that kettle too. So if you're
Right.
using wood, tiered
Yes.
wood shelving, that heat can come around. And if you have a particular brew day where there's no wind, and that pallet wood slowly heats up, it could flash.
Well,
It is possible.
And it's not even a silly question, because the average person probably doesn't think about it too much. I'll give you an example. This house we bought has this beautiful, huge wooden deck covering a lot of the backyard, and it's very elevated. It's gorgeous. My wife and I have a fire pit, and she was like, "Oh, that's where we could put the fire pit," and like right in the middle of the deck. And I was like, "No, I'd rather not." And she's like, "No, it should be fine." I was like, "Yeah, wooden pallet and fire."
Oh yeah, you asked me that. I was like, hell yeah, you should do that.
I know you did.
Yeah, I mean, listen, from one redneck to another, you'll be fine with a pallet as long as you cover it in duct tape.
That's right. Yeah,
That's
cover
the
it in duct
secret.
tape and make
Wrap it
sure.
completely in duct tape.
And I need to make sure my new homeowner's insurance policy is solid. That's what I need to make sure. I need to, the rebuild on it and whatnot. No, it does seem benign at first, because in the best case situations, your fire is controlled and it's to the burners and there's no drippage or whatever, like something that could catch fire. But we don't always have best case scenarios in any given thing. That's why Todd doesn't bring the propane stuff inside. Is it going to necessarily be damaging to people or what you're doing? No. But if it is, it's like putting a pit bull with a baby, or maybe that's a bad example, because now we're going to have people who are like, I own pit bulls and they're not bad. It's if you put something, ride a roller coaster without a seatbelt, there we go. That won't offend
Like
anybody.
having a pet tiger.
Yeah, like
Sooner or later, that tiger's
it's a
going to bite you.
tiger. Exactly. Like, but for 999 days it was great. But on the 1,000th day, when it wasn't, you really had a bad day. So if it's up to you, Ryan, if you want to risk potentially having a really bad day. And you may go years and then stop brewing and have never had a bad day. We're just covering our bases to make sure that you understand that you could. And if you do, we don't want to hear about it. Like, I mean, and I mean, that would be sad if we heard about like, oh, I did it and burned it all down and most of my backyard caught fire and I'm going to stop brewing. That would be sad.
Definitely keep a hose candy in the water on.
Yeah. Definitely.
If you, and seriously about using propane, 20-gallon propane tanks inside.
Yeah.
If you ever decide to do that, Google propane, 20-pound propane tanks exploding in house sometime and look at some of the videos, and that should dissuade you.
Yes.
There's a lot of videos on it.
Oh, you've shown me.
Yep.
You've shown me. They're scary. They're almost as entertaining and scary. And I'm using the word entertaining wrong. They're almost as scary as the Russian car dash cam videos that are always uploaded to YouTube.
Yeah,
I
love those.
Just driving and then, yeah.
Well, I'm looking at this is a HDX brand at Home Depot. It's $21. So you could get 2 of those, and then you could stagger them for less than $50, and it would look good. And it's wire shelving, so it's not like it's going to burn up.
Send me the link so I can put it in the show notes.
Just for ideas. You know, that shelving,
$21
is pretty
cheap.
It's pretty stout. I mean, it'll hold some weight.
Well, and we know why he's using pallets. It's the reason why anyone uses pallets. They're readily available, and most places are giving them away. I don't know if people, maybe in some neighborhoods, you can convince goofballs to pay for pallets, but for the most part, like Todd, you give away pallets all the time. But
I would have built my house out of pallets if my wife would have let me.
Exactly. But you have so many every week out there, and I've been at the office late enough where people pull up and they start loading it up, and when I come out of the office, they look like they did something wrong and stare at me. I'm like, no, they're out there for you to take. I'm like, okay. And they keep loading up all your pallets that are out there in front of the building. It's very common. But yeah, Ryan, I'm going to put the link from James in the show notes. That way we can
that thing will hold 250 pounds.
That's perfect. Then that's perfect.
Yeah. You just want to make sure whatever shelving you get, make sure it's going to support imagine that thing completely full of water, and a gallon of water is like 8.2 pounds.
Right.
Just make sure the shelving you get will handle the weight, and I think you're good to go.
Absolutely.
I'll send you a picture of my burner so you can show people what not to do.
Send me, take it on your phone because you're there at the barn, so I can embed that in the show notes too. Because this will be a.
I don't think it's a pallet. I think it's just a board, but yeah.
I don't know, man.
It's just a board.
Oh, okay. It picked up a board. Anyways, Ryan, thank you so much for submitting your question. Guys, that's all I've got for this week's episode. I appreciate y'all doing it a little bit early so that I can make sure it publishes on time tomorrow. And by me saying that, that's like the 3rd time I've said it this show. If I don't publish it on time, I'm never going to hear the end of it from our audience. But also, too, so that way we could get some stuff done tomorrow on Recipe Recap when I'm up there at headquarters. I'm excited. James, you said you're going to be able to come to the barn and record both episodes. So it's going to be a good Thursday. I'm excited. So thank you all so much for your time, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right. See you tomorrow.
See ya.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or again, you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Like you heard at the top of the show, sign up for our inaugural Kolsch Cup and see if you can win our Grand Champion Trophy. Learn more at kolschcup.com and also learn more about getting a free entry by going to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.
This program is made possible by the checkbook of Mr. Todd Burns and by contributions to our newly launched Patreon by viewers like you. Visit patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and join our community. Thank you.